Hello, hello. This is Ashley from Ashbea Music, and today we are going to be doing a composition stream. We're going to look at various tools and techniques we can use to write a piece of music, as well as going into some of the theoretical knowledge that we will need to enable us to turn it into a coherent piece of music. So, the melody we're going to be working with today, we're going to work with the key of G major, and the melody is going to go something like this. Okay, so we have a melody there. Details of rhythm and things like that may change depending on what we want to do in the creative process, but that is what we're working with. So we are going to go into Musescore, and then we are going to write out this melody. We're going to transcribe it. So I'm going to click on New Score. By the way, I'm using the latest version of Musescore, Musescore 4. And it's completely free. You can download it from www.musescore.org. What we're going to do is we're going to start out with a piano score. So I'm going to go up here to choose instruments, type into the search box piano, click on piano, and go to this right arrow here, which will add the selected instruments to our score. And then we're going to click done. And here we go, we've got a score with some bars. We've got a time signature. We can also fill in our name here in the composer field. So I'm just going to put Ashbea Music. So here we go we're going to put G major in there. By the way, I just dragged the key signature over to the score. And now comes the interesting process of having to kind of transcribe the music. We've got a 4/4 time signature, and I'm kind of going to go slowly here, and I'm going to kind of think about where my notes would lie on this pulse. So I'm kind of going to work with this slow pulse for now and try and fit it with our melody. So we've got okay, so we're immediately seeing that this is going to have quite a bit of syncopation in it. Syncopation is when notes that should come on beats do not happen on the beats, but they happen off the beats. Okay, what I mean by on beat and off beat is that if it's on the beat, it's on a number. And if it's off the beat, it's not on a number. So if I was to play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, and I played it with every note on a click, right? This is not syncopated because every single note that I'm playing falls on a numbered beat, versus our melody that we are working with today. So you can hear there's a mixture of notes that are on the beat and notes that are off the beat or syncopated. This creates interest. This creates something that keeps people's attention. So let's have a look at that first beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. How many notes did we have in that beat until we got to the next beat? There were 2 of them. So if we have 2 notes per beat, we are dealing with quavers. If there's 1 note per beat, we're dealing with crotches. If there's 1 note every 2 beats, we're dealing with minims. This is in 4/4 time signature. Different time signatures will work differently. So we have 2 notes per beat. We have a G and a D and a G. Okay, so we've got, I'm going to write G, D, G into my score here. So I'm going to click on this rest. I'm going to go over here to the note palette up the top. And by the way, I pressed N for note entry. So that allows me to enter notes. And you can see with the mouse, I can choose the note that I want to enter. And I can select how long it's going to be up here. So I'll want to put down these notes. And then we have another G there. So we have this so far. Let's go back to our piano and try and see if we can work out the rest of it. So we got 1 and 2 and then the third beat is even more syncopated. What we have to do is we have to break down the beat into its component parts. And we call that subdivision in music. We are subdividing a beat into smaller parts in order to help us understand what notes go on which of these smaller bits. This is very important when you're dealing with quavers, semiquavers, anything that isn't crotchets. Although you will have to subdivide in other time signatures as well. This is not unique to 4/4. It's every single time signature will have subdivisions in it, but the subdivisions will be different depending on your time signature and what your bottom number is. That's the most important part of this whole thing. We're dealing with the bottom number of 4, so we're dealing with crotchets here. So we have to subdivide by first thinking about quavers, which we already did with the first 2 beats, and then thinking about semiquavers. I'm going to try and see if I can break this down. This third beat, we had 1 and 2 and 3, 4, right? So I can think about 3 things that are immediately relevant. There are a lot of notes in beat 3. That's relevant thing number 1. Relevant thing number 2 is that something is not on the last beat of this bar. We had 3, 4. So all of our notes are actually crammed into beat 3 because the last note happens just before beat 4. So I am going to try now and count the subdivisions and see where those notes lie in between the numbers. Okay, so because we have a lot of notes here, I'm going to take an educated guess. Not really, I know, but I'm going to actually look at semiquavers here because there's more than 2 notes per beat. Just like in beat 1, we had 2 notes per beat, so that was very clearly quavers. However, in beat 3, we've got more than 2 notes, so I have to go to the next subdivision now. I have to go from quavers to semiquavers. So we have this, 3, 4, okay? Now, if I count every single semiquaver, we get this, 3, E, and a 4, right? So now I have an idea of what we're doing. 3, E, and a 4, right? So that gives me some very important information. I know that there's a note on the first semiquaver, 3. I know there's one on the second semiquaver, E. There's nothing on the third one, and. So I'm going to extend that note that was on the E through the and because there's nothing else happening on the and. I can extend that note, I can make it longer. And then on the we have this other note, the A, right? So we have 3, E, and a 4. So this means I'm dealing with a semiquaver, a quaver, and then another semiquaver. Let me go to the quaver, put this in here, and then the semiquaver. Hey, that's actually kind of cool. We have our third beat. What happens on beat 4? 1, 2, 3, 4. Does anything happen on beat 4? No. So what we can do is we can extend this note this semiquaver through beat 4. We have a crotchet rest here. So what we're going to do is we're going to put in another crotchet on the same note that we had before. This semiquaver and this crotchet will be the same note. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the T key to tie them over. And as you know from grade 1 theory, ties extend the value of the first note by adding the value of the second note to the first note. So we've got this now. Not bad, not bad. We got our first bar done. The second bar goes like this. Okay, immediately you're going to start seeing some patterns. How many notes did we have in our first beat? 1 and they were quavers, right? So we can actually take this rhythm that we had at the beginning, copy and paste it there, and then move this D up to the F sharp. Okay, so we have our first beat of our second bar, 1 and. Now we have to think about our second beat. What rhythm that we have already written down could that apply to? Could that pattern that I've just played apply to? It's actually the same rhythm as our third beat of bar 1. So all I need to do is change my notes to use E, F sharp and G. And then we have a crotchet rest at the end because this is the end of a phrase. We've just created a complete musical statement. So we've got this currently. We've got our first phrase here written down in 2 bars. And our second phrase is this. Pretty easy to notice that these are the same. So what I can do is I can just copy and paste. So now we have 4 bars. Now, what happens in the next 4 bars? Let me just switch to continuous view here so that we can see our score on a scrolling horizontal line, basically. And we're going to tackle these next 4 bars. We can notice a couple of things about this. One is that there appears to be some repetition here. Remember we talked about repetition and contrast. This is repetition, so this is a similarity. However, this is not a straight repetition. Otherwise it would sound like this. Okay, that would be a straight repetition. The second part of the phrase was lower. I'll play it again. Okay, in music, we call this a sequence, and this is one of the musical devices that you will need to know for GCSE music. It's called a sequence because it's a repetition that creates a pattern by not actually repeating the same thing twice in the same way. And that's actually a very important form of repetition that you can use in your compositions to repeat things but still make them seem new or different, to keep people's attention while also giving them something to follow. So in this case, our sequence meant that the second part of the phrase was moved down 1 scale note. So the G major scale, by the way, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. So we've got 1 and 2 and then we've got our funky rhythm from earlier. 3, E and 4 and then we have the same thing happening again, but just down one scale note. So instead of starting on D and going 4 Ds and then another D, 5 Ds, C, B, now we're going to have 5 Cs. And then a B and then an A, right? So we went D, C, B, and now we're going C, B, A. So one scale note down from where we initially had it. The audience will be able to connect those two phrases together, even though the notes are different, because the rhythms are the same. So if you want to be safe when you're dealing with how different do I make a repetition, either change the rhythm or change the pitch. So we have 1 and 2 and 3 E and 4 and then we have the same thing again. 1 and 2 and 3 E and 4 and, okay? So same rhythm, different pitches. So we need 4 quavers here on the D. So I'm going to go into note input mode again. Select my quaver and go D, 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 and then we can copy our rhythm from earlier. We could either copy and paste it from earlier or we can write it out again. In fact, writing it out again is probably a good thing to do, because if you use copy and paste a lot, it doesn't help you actually internalize your ability to write rhythms and recognize them. Sometimes it's good to rewrite the rhythm instead of using copy and paste, because the more times you write these things, the more repetitions you do, the more practice you're getting and the faster you're going to get. Ear training is just like anything else in music. It can be trained, it can be learned, and you learn it exactly the same way as you learn anything else in music, with a lot of patience, discipline, and repetition. So here's our rhythm with our first sort of part of this phrase, and then I'm going to copy the same rhythm again, 4 quavers, then a semiquaver, a quaver on the B, and then a semiquaver on the A. And I'm going to put a crotchet in on the last beat of this bar and tie those two together. So now we have 6 bars. Now, what do you think happens at the end? We get this. It sounds to me like it's a repeat of the first 2 bars, which means we can copy and paste if we wanted to. So we're going to do exactly that. I know I said sometimes you don't want to, but sometimes if it's a complete repetition, sometimes you want to save time. So in this case, we're going to save time. There we go. This is our full 8 bars here. We may change things a bit later on, but for now this is a good framework, and we have our idea out. The most important thing is to get the idea out of your head and onto the page or the screen. Hey, this is Ashley. Thanks for watching this video. Follow us on Twitch to catch up with future streams, and subscribe to our channel to not miss future videos in this series. Here's a video YouTube thinks you'll like. We'll catch up with you again over there.